Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Sunday, August 6, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card that we are starting our day off with today is our Queen of Pentacles in its reversal. Now, one of the things that we've been seeing for the feminine energy over the last few days, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to, has been some concerns around stability. Feminine energy has been kind of holding in terms of their own space right now, bearing in mind that they've put a lot of concentration on maintaining this point of stability for themselves at this moment. For the feminine energy, this is coming through, and wherever you put this feeling of stability, be it your finances, there'll be a lot of concentration there, be it your family systems or your friendships, that's where we've been seeing the feminine concentrating a lot of their efforts. However, today we do see the fact that there is a moment right now that is shaking some of this energy for the feminine, more concerns around how to maintain that point of stability. This is a point of a bit of a breakthrough because we saw that yesterday feminine was holding to this space. This is something that feminine is going to be putting a lot of care and consideration to as they proceed forward today. While for masculine energy right now, we have been seeing that masculine energy has really been working through this retrograde period trying to maintain a point of emotional balance. Today, this could be a moment for the masculine where there is a lot of care and consideration towards feminine energy. And this is going to either be interpreted as masculine energy working in union, in partnership right now with feminine energy, helping and assisting a feminine energy that is feeling some point around a lack of stability at this moment, or for the other part of the collective, for that masculine energy that is not in partnership right now, this could be having to address some manifestation of feminine right now that you have a lot of care and concentration to at this point, but you are recognizing that there is some feeling of instability coming from this energy. Now, let's see if we can continue to get some clarification on these cards right now. Second card coming through right now in our 5-card spread for today is the 3 of Pentacles in its reversal. One of the things that we have been seeing is a lot of care and consideration in terms of what you are building at this moment. For masculine and feminine energy right now, there could be a feeling of laying out new grounds, new foundations upon which to build. However, we do have to keep in mind that this is kind of an act or a lot of care and attention that is being paid to the fact that things sometimes need to come down before they need to come up. This is a lot of working from square one. We've been seeing this a lot in the cards, particularly as it relates to new points of view, new perspectives, new avenues that you are moving towards at this point. These are, again, points and situations and circumstances that you are looking at from different optics right now, or you are taking new approaches. And these are new approaches that you're taking are requiring a moment that is allowing you to take something down before you build something up anew. For feminine energy right now, this is a lot of that starting from this scratch energy that we've been seeing. Feminine energy is working right now to build things for themselves at this moment. This is taking a lot of care and consideration right now towards where feminine energy is putting their focus, how they are going to build moving forward. And for feminine energy right now, this could be a lot of care and consideration in terms of feeling or recognizing spaces or places right now in your own journey that you feel do not have the stability or the foundations that you would ideally desire at this point. Feminine energy is putting a lot of care and consideration into this, but what is happening in the wake of this is feminine may be over concentrating so much on some of these lack of foundations that it's starting to shake their own feeling of stability from within. Feminine needs to work very hard today to make sure that they're working on manifesting this energy for themselves, even as they set about doing some of this rebuilding work. While for masculine energy right now, this is a moment that you could be feeling like you are starting from scratch around a new feminine energy. Now, either this is going to come through as new feminine energy right now, or it could be coming through right now as it relates to those new approaches, those new communications that we saw that the masculine energy was potentially putting forth to come back in contact or union right now with some feminine energy. And this could be feeling like a lot of this energetic feeling of starting from square one, starting from scratch as you build the foundations anew. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is where you find yourselves at this moment as it relates to the new approaches. There is a lot of opportunity here is what we're seeing, but there's a lot of work to be done. Center card for today's spread we are going to be getting today is We have here our Queen of Wands, which is a beautiful card to see in combination right now with our Queen of Pentacles. Because while we do see that feminine energy is putting a lot of care and consideration right now into the spaces and the places that they feel require more stability at this moment, this is creating some feeling of frustration right now for the feminine energy on their own sense of stability. But that's why feminine energy is concentrating so much of their focus right now on laying these foundations. Speaking of foundations, apologies about that. We had a little bit of a glitch, but we are back as we are talking about feminine laying out these new foundations for themselves at this time. This is also a moment that feminine is utilizing their communication in order to help build this foundation for themselves going forward. Feminine energy is feeling a lot of this masculine energy within them right now, and this is inspiring them as it relates to the plans that they are laying out at this moment. Today could be spent a lot in terms of planning for feminine right now and around communication. While for masculine energy right now, we are seeing that this is a moment that you yourself are also working on laying new ground, potentially in collaboration with feminine energy that you are also in active communication with in terms of how to proceed forward from this point. Or for the masculine energy right now, I need to point out, particularly for the masculine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, this could even be speaking around more than one manifestation that is around you at this time. This, for the masculine energy not in partnership, could either be a singular manifestation of feminine energy that you are recognizing is communicative, is able to communicate what they need to communicate at this time. And the thing that they are communicating are the places, the spaces, the circumstances, the situations that are shaking their own feeling of confidence or stability at this moment. You are utilizing this communication with the feminine energy to see where you need to put your energy going forward to help that build that sense of stability as you proceed forward from this point. While for the other part of the masculine energy right now, you will note that some of the masculine energy yesterday was utilizing this as a departure moment, moving on, learning lessons from the past that they were taking into the future at this time. This could be leaving oneself open right now to a lot of different feminine energy at this point, but also feeling somewhat a point of instability as you do so, because we do see here for that part of the masculine collective, you are feeling like you are kind of starting from ground, like starting from like scratch. This is that starting from scratch energy that we recognized yesterday for the masculine. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card for our 5-card spread for today is, we have here the Hermit energy. There's a lot of work that is happening right now, and some of this work can feel like it is somewhat isolating. We've been seeing very consistently right now in the daily collective read, particularly during this retrograde, in Venus in retrograde cycle, that feminine energy has been putting a lot of care and concentration right now on their own self, on their own sense of stability. So what we could really be seeing right now for the feminine energy is this is a lot of work that you are doing for yourself in this moment as you try to lay these new, stronger foundations around yourself at this time. But this is a lot of that heavy work that we're seeing for the feminine energy. It's requiring the feminine energy to observe the spaces or places in your own life, in your own experience right now, where you are recognizing is the source that is making you feel those points of instability. Feminine energy is doing a lot of that work to identify those spaces right now. But what we like so much to see right now in the cards as it relates to the feminine energies, while you are recognizing those spaces and places to observe where you are feeling that lack of stability from, we are seeing that you're doing so also that you can figure out better methods going forward that are going to help make you feel more fortified and stable as you proceed forward from this point. But this is taking a lot of singular work for the feminine, taking this time, taking this energy, finding that point of solitude so that you can address these things, so that you can get to the root of the problem, all for the sake of being able to build more stability as you continue forward from this point. While for masculine energy right now, this is a moment that you yourself are also taking a lot of time getting some deep insight in points of solitude. Potentially for the masculine energy that is working in partnership with feminine right now, this is that moment of working with the feminine to identify the spaces or places that make the feminine energy feel less than stable. You are trying to shed that light on the circumstances and the situations where the feminine energy is feeling less stable. Why? All so that you could build those new solid, stable foundations going forward. And that is allowing this point of potential active communication with feminine energy through which you are trying to do this work on right now. This is that half of the masculine collective that was not potentially either in partnership right now, lending support to feminine, or going back to circumstances and situations that we identified over the last few days from the masculine energy, where we recognize that the masculine energy that was trying to come back into union with past feminine energy knew that there was going to be a requirement of shedding some light, providing some information, helping the feminine energy feel more secure. That conversation, those arguments, those discussions, they were difficult topics that needed to be addressed. This could have resulted in the feminine energy feeling less than stable at this time, even while there is active communication occurring. But what we recognize and appreciate right now for the masculine energy that is actively doing this work in union with feminine, or working to get back into union with feminine, is that you're actively making this choice right now to shed that light on circumstances or situations, all for the sake of starting anew. While for the other part of the masculine collective right now, this is that moment that we see that you are moving away from circumstances or situations through which you now recognize that there was not enough information that was shared. There was something there between you and the feminine that felt like there was not full disclosure. There felt like there were things that were not necessarily fully in the light of day. And now you are utilizing those lessons that we saw coming through over the last few days to address either moving towards new feminine energy that you may not necessarily feel you have that stable situation or circumstance with at this time, or potentially leaving yourself open and available to multiple manifestations of feminine at this time. But recognizing the lessons, the experiences that you have learned thus far, doing that work and putting a lot of care and attention into how you are moving forward from this point, all for the sake of making sure that you are navigating forward, utilizing the lessons that you experienced from the past. For feminine, this is a lot of internal work right now we've been seeing, particularly as it relates to this retrograde period. A lot of this going inwards. And for masculine as well. But for masculine, this is a lot of insight as it relates to how you are communicating and what you are communicating to the feminine as you proceed forward from this point. Fifth card today for our 5-card spread is... we have here our star in its reversal. For feminine energy right now, there is this moment. What is the feminine energy effectively communicating at this time? Feminine energy is potentially working around, again, either in collaboration with masculine energy or addressing this within their own self at this time. Places or spaces where they do not feel like they can be vulnerable, where they do not feel that they can be seen, where they do feel these anxieties in terms of being their most authentic expression of self at this moment. Feminine energy is doing a lot of internal work right now to assess and address circumstances and situations that put feminine in this moment or in this capacity. What we appreciate about this, though, is while the feminine energy is taking this time, getting that insight from a point of solitude at this moment, feminine energy is also activating on it. I need to stress, we did not see a lot of cards for feminine yesterday. We're seeing them all coming out today. The last few days, a lot of the cards that we've been seeing have been very much focused on the masculine journey at this time. We're seeing that reflection point coming through right now with the feminine now coming into a state of empowerment. This is that moment right now where feminine energy is moving into a point of activation. How is feminine energy moving into a point of activation at this time? Feminine energy is moving into a point of activation at this time by specifically identifying within the self spaces, places, circumstances, or situations that do not allow them to feel that full level or degree of stability that they would ideally desire at this time. Feminine is taking steps to address those circumstances and situations at this time, but feminine is doing it in a very cautious manner. Why is feminine doing that at a cautious manner right now? Feminine is doing it from a point of caution because feminine energy is feeling very vulnerable about being vulnerable. This is what we see the feminine is working through right now with this Venus in retrograde energy. Feminine energy is struggling right now between the point of wanting to take this step of confidence, wanting to move from a point of confidence versus those spaces or places where they may not necessarily feel that confidence to do so at this time. But what we appreciate about this is a deep internal journey that we're seeing that the feminine is working through right now to better understand how to address these points of stability for themselves so that they can feel their most confident in terms of the choices that they're making as they lay these new foundations at this time. While for masculine energy right now, this is a lot of care and attention right now that is potentially going to be paid towards feminine energy. I need to even stress that for the masculine collective, this could have to do right now with more than one manifestation of feminine energy that you're effectively working with at this time. Because what we're really identifying for the masculine is, if you are in partnership right now, masculine, there could be a lot of work that you're doing with feminine energy or multiple feminine representations in your life at this time to help them feel that they're laying new foundations going forward. You are actively paying a lot of care and consideration to the needs of the feminine right now. The feminine energy is being very articulate at this moment in terms of what their needs are. But you appreciate this, you're here for this work because we see that you're getting the insight, you're getting the information that you need that will help you move forward in terms of helping build stronger foundations as they proceed forward right now. A lot of listening that may be required right now for the masculine energy that is working in harmony with feminine energy at this moment. While for the masculine energy that is not necessarily in partnership right now, we see one of two different paths that are effectively occurring at this time. For half of the masculine collective, as we indicated, there was some past experience that you recognize that the only way to come back into union with the energy was if you were open, if you are able to shed light on circumstances or situations. We see the fact that you're actively engaged in doing so at this time, but also effectively having to potentially mitigate for what that information has effectively resulted in around the feminine energy that you were effectively trying to get back in communication with. Because we see here that while that information, while that clarification has shed the light that was effectively needed, feminine energy is being communicative. They are being articulate in terms of their needs. There is a lot of expression right now that you're also potentially having to observe around the feminine energy in terms of what that information has effectively rendered in the feminine, which is some feelings of potential distress, some feelings of anxiety, some feelings of uncertainty, and also some feelings right now of feeling some anxiety about building something stable going forward. But this is something that you are actively in harmony right now with feminine energy, and you are continuing to push forward and lend that insight, shed that light around these things to help the feminine energy feel more empowered as they proceed forward from this point. While for the other part of the masculine collective right now, what we're really identifying is that moment that we see that you yourself are potentially, this was that moment that was either going backwards to shed that information or moving forwards away from these experiences, having determined that these are lessons that you need to carry with you forward at this time. For the other part of the masculine collective right now, as I said, this could be either new energy that's coming towards you at this time that you are trying to build a level or degree of confidence around energy that is expressing their own feelings of vulnerability at this time, or for the other part of the masculine collective right now, this could be multiple manifestations of feminine energy that you are currently working in moving towards right now. Utilizing this, taking your own time, trying to put a lot of care and consideration in terms of what energy you want to move forward towards at this point. With this feeling that you are building a new foundation, or you're working to make sure that the foundation that you build with the new feminine energy right now is going to be as stable and secure as possible, having learned the lessons from the past. Now, let's see if we can get some clarification on what we are seeing today. Clarification coming through right now between our Queen of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Three of Pentacles in its reversal. So, feminine energy right now, a lot of care and consideration that is being paid right now to situations and circumstances in your own experience that you feel need stronger foundations. Feminine energy is actively doing a lot of work today to address these circumstances or situations because there's a recognition point around those places and spaces that are making the feminine feel less than stable in their own experience at this time. While for masculine energy right now, this is a moment that, again, you're putting a lot of care and consideration in potentially building new strong foundations, but it is taking a little bit of dismantling. Something needs to come down a little bit before it can be built up anew. You are either working right now with the feminine energy if you're in partnership to identify the spaces or places that the feminine feels less than stable, all for the sake of building these foundations at this time. While for the masculine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, we see that this is that moment that you are laying new groundwork around feminine energy. Things may not necessarily be stable because this could be either feel like new foundations that you are laying with past energy that is coming from a point where you have to help the feminine energy feel more secure in the connection again, or this is a moment that you are experiencing that you are trying to lay brand new groundwork around new feminine energy, and that groundwork isn't there, so you're recognizing why the feminine isn't potentially coming through as stable as you would expect. You're trying to build this stability with the feminine right now in a new way. May I please have one card to clarify? Two cards coming out to clarify this right now. What we like around this is our Knight of Swords in combination with our Four of Wands. For feminine and masculine energy right now, there is a lot and a high degree of planning that is occurring at this moment. What we appreciate for the partnership energy right now is this is a need that is immediately addressed by a point of action. Masculine energy is recognizing the feminine being at a point that they feel like that lack of stability is present. Masculine is moving very quickly to try to address those feelings of instability at this time. How is masculine energy doing that at this moment? Masculine energy is doing it by firming plans, by solidifying the path forward, by creating that point of clarity for a feminine energy to help articulate that while something might not necessarily feel immediately stable in the active moment, that things are moving towards a space where they will be better, and you're showing a very clear path in terms of how that will do so. While for feminine right now that is working in partnership with masculine, you are also experiencing it at this time. You are working in union right now. You're working in partnership to help build this foundation, but all by setting those plans for the future. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is going to feel a bit different. But we do appreciate this because what we see here is for feminine energy at this time, there's a lot of care and consideration that you are paying to the spaces and places in your own life where you don't necessarily feel you have the degree or level of stability that you would ideally desire at this time. You're putting a lot of care and attention on those places today. Again, you are feeling very motivated to do so. You're doing so to a certain extent by building these plans, building this path forward, doing a lot of work right now in terms of helping to clear that path for yourself today, to see what that is going to look like. There could be a lot of planning that is put into consideration today to address any feelings of lack of stability right now. This is also a moment that, again, you are potentially working right now with masculine energy, or you're allowing masculine energy in. That potentially creates these points of clarity and focus for you at this time. This could be working right now with energy that you see this same level or degree of confidence in terms of being able to move very swiftly on plans at this time. While for the masculine energy right now, this is a moment that, again, we either see that you are actually actively working right now to assist around a feminine energy that is showing some degree right now as a lack of stability in terms of how they are feeling. The masculine energy right now is moving very swiftly to potentially lay these plans in place right now around this energy to help fortify the energy in terms of their own sense of confidence at this moment. And as we said, this is either a masculine energy going towards some of that past energy, shedding that information, working through these plans, potentially building plans right now to help the feminine energy feel more secure in terms of rebuilding some bonds from the past going forward. Or this is new energy that is coming towards the masculine at this time. Those new experiences that we identified that the masculine is leaving themselves open to at this time. And they are laying the groundwork. They are quickly working to lay these plans very, very swiftly today, masculine. We see a lot of very swift activity to secure plans and put plans in place at this time. All for the sake of working to help build this foundation around this feminine energy that a lot of your care and attention is addressed towards at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Three of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Wands energy. So For feminine energy right now, this is that moment that you are taking a lot of this attention for yourself at this time. You are clearly communicating. You are utilizing your own ability to communicate, to lay out your own plans, all to address any spaces or places where you are feeling less than confident or less than secure at this time. Feminine energy is doing a lot of this work for themselves. And again, only allowing in, working in collaboration right now with masculine energy that is showing the same degree of swiftness as it relates to your ability to communicate and their ability to take action on what it is that you're communicating. And that is what is giving you the confidence to go forward at this time as it relates to the plans going forward. You're doing this, you're laying these plans in union, in harmony right now with those masculine energy that's around you. Or the feminine energy right now is in a point where they're allowing in new masculine energy that is showing this care and degree and ability to do this at this time. While for the masculine energy, what we're really identifying right now is this is that moment that, again, you are also working to fortify and lay down stronger foundations. If you are in partnership right now, there's a lot of communication that is potentially passing between you and feminine energy to identify the spaces or places that need to have more care and attention put to them right now. But what we appreciate with the masculine that's in partnership with the feminine is you are actively moving swiftly to address these concerns, potentially even laying out plans to help the energy feel more confident and secure going forward. While for the other part of the masculine collective that is not in partnership at this time, this is those one of two different paths that we saw were opening up for the masculine over the last few days. For some of the masculine energy, this is shedding light on situations or circumstances from past feminine energy that you are now recognizing is potentially at a point right now where they're feeling less than secure, less than confident about what is between you both right now, but they are actively communicating that. This has to do with some of that information or some of that clarity that you are bringing onto something right now, having recognized that that was difficult for you to be able to communicate and articulate, but you are doing everything you can to continue to communicate and articulate, potentially even putting action to words right now to help the feminine energy feel more secure in terms of what is being communicated at this time. While for the other part of the masculine collective right now, we saw the fact that this was that moment that you are utilizing some of the lessons from the past to come into new pathways of connectivity around feminine energy at this time. And this is building anew. This is starting new communication. You're starting from the ground up. You're recognizing that the feminine energy around you right now is at a point where they are in consideration about whether you're coming in as stable or not at this time. But we see that, again, you are also doing a lot of work right now to shed light and give information to help the feminine energy feel more secure. And you are moving very swiftly to secure plans with feminine energy so that the feminine energy feels more confident going forward from this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Pentacles in its reversal. This is all about reciprocity at this moment. What feels like it is creating an equal give and take. What feels like it is reciprocal versus what feels like you are putting your effort in and not getting something back in kind. Feminine energy is paying a lot of care and consideration right now to where they are investing their time, effort, and energy. Having learned from situations and circumstances from the past that they don't effectively want to be in a space or place where they feel like they are giving forward and not getting back in kind. Feminine energy is also putting a lot of caution right now into what they're building right now in terms of whether it will be reciprocal and even going forward. But we see here that the feminine energy is putting a lot of this care and consideration in right now because feminine energy is working so hard right now on building this foundation for themselves at this moment. They're working so hard right now to maintain a point of stability that some of this energy that we're seeing for the feminine right now has to do with the fact that feminine energy has very little bandwidth. right? Feminine energy isn't necessarily in a space or place where they have a lot of extra energy to spare at this time because they're working so hard on building these foundations for themselves at this moment. Feminine energy could effectively be communicating this right now or taking active steps to potentially even open up their own bandwidth or try to communicate or articulate where they have been or what they've been doing that is requiring all of their time and effort and energy at this time. For the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership at this moment, this is a lot of work that you are doing in partnership together. This is unified work that you're putting right now, looking at the spaces and places that you feel are giving back what you're putting into them at this time, all for the sake of building stronger foundations going forward. And this could even be putting a lot of care and attention into your day-to-day practices, your day-to-day obligations, to see what feels like it is returning back what you are putting in versus those spaces and places that you may just need to reconsider or build up from anew. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that are not in partnership at this moment, this is going to feel a little different because for the feminine energy right now, we see that feminine energy is very much concentrated on the work that they're doing at this time. They don't necessarily have a lot of bandwidth to give forth towards masculine energy at this time because we see here that feminine energy is so focused on working through these points of stability for themselves at this time. However, we see the fact that the feminine energy is effectively almost communicating that right now to masculine energy, their own feelings of insecurity, both in terms of what they're trying to do, what their bandwidth is, but also their anxiety in terms of letting someone come in to give them a level of assistance, what they feel right now as it relates to their own anxiety in reciprocity at this time. They're communicating this effectively to masculine at this moment. This would be the articulation point of the feminine feeling less than stable or less than confident in things at this time. We see here for the masculine energy right now that is coming into partnership with feminine here. There's a lot of, as I said, that active listening that is effectively occurring at this time, okay? Masculine energy that is working right now to get back into union with feminine energy is moving very swiftly to effectively make things easier for the feminine. They're moving very swiftly to put actions to the words that they are saying to help the feminine energy feel more secure in terms of the communication that they're having, because feminine energy is being very communicative and masculine energy is working very hard to shed light on situations and circumstances for the feminine energy, versus the places and spaces that feminine is just putting a lot of this care and degree and attention towards for themselves at this moment. While for masculine energy right now, this is effectively experiencing this to a high degree from the feminine energy at this time. That while you may be interpreting and seeing the fact that there is a feminine energy that is now open and available and communicative towards you at this time, we do see the fact that this feminine does have reservations as it relates to coming into partnership. We see that here with this Queen of Pentacles in its reversal. And the fact that we have the Hermit here. Masculine energy is probably getting a vibe from feminine right now that has a point where they seem like they are very communicative, but they are staying very much to themselves at this point. They're staying very isolated to a certain degree. Feminine energy is probably effectively even communicating towards masculine energy at this time. If you're experiencing this masculine, that feminine energy is not doing this for any other reason than the fact that they don't feel like they necessarily have the bandwidth. But we're also seeing here for the feminine energy and masculine energy at this time that you yourself are recognizing the fact that this is feminine energy that is being very resistant in terms of allowing energy in at a moment where they themselves are working so hard to maintain a point of stability at this time. For the masculine energy right now that is working through this, we did identify, as I said, two different pathways that are effectively rising up to the unattached masculine energy at this time. For half of the masculine energy at this moment, this could be coming back into partnership, coming back into communication with past energy. And the past energy is requiring kind of building from the ground up, building anew. And one of the things that feminine energy could be communicating to the masculine right now is their own desire or anxieties or degree around reciprocity. What feels like it is reciprocal? What feminine needs in order to come back in? This is a lot of effective, like almost verbal communication or negotiation that is happening between the masculine and feminine energy in terms of what the feminine energy may effectively feel that they need to see in order to feel more stable or secure to allow the masculine energy back in. We see here for that masculine energy that is working to come back into partnership with feminine at this time, you are rushing forward effectively to provide these points of security and stability for the feminine. The feminine is effectively telling you what they need or their own anxieties in terms of what they haven't seen before, and this is you moving and rushing very quickly to provide that in a tangible form as it relates to laying plans to help the feminine energy feel more secure going forward. While for the other part of the masculine collective right now, this has a lot to do with some of that new feminine energy that you are now allowing in. Masculine energy, there was a part of the collective that we identified was in a point where they recognized or they felt that there may have been too many things that had to be articulated, too much work that needed to be done in terms of what they needed to express and explain to feminine, that they didn't necessarily feel like there was a path forward. So these are new avenues and new opportunities that are opening up around the masculine at this time. But masculine energy is identifying a certain point that they're kind of finding all of the feminine energy around them is embodying the same quality to a certain extent. Feminine energy is working very much on their own selves at this moment, and they're feeling very insecure about working or coming into a space of being open and reciprocal towards masculine energy at this time. The masculine energy at this moment is working very hard right now to build these points of clarity, to try to prove to the feminine energy that's feeling insecure at this time that these are spaces and places that they'll be able to provide this level or degree of reciprocity for the feminine as you continue forward from this point. For some of the masculine energy right now, this is a singular manifestation of feminine that you're now working to get in partnership with, or it could even identify multiple manifestations of feminine energy that you're currently in communication with at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Wands energy in combination with our Hermit energy. Welcome to the Venus in retrograde, friends. What are we seeing? Feminine energy is working a lot in terms of building this sense of comfort in solitude. We see here a feminine energy that is building this degree or ability to find a lot of insight, comfort, experience in points of solitude. Feminine energy is moving right now from taking a lot of steps of activity in terms as it relates to communication right now. But feminine energy is also taking any time they need to go within, to find that security within, because feminine energy is moving with a lot of intentionality at this moment. Building clarification, building insight. Feminine energy is doing a lot of work right now to shed light on the path forward, even as they start to lay these plans for themselves at this moment. But feminine energy isn't rushing ahead. I need to stress this right now. We see masculine energy very much willing to have that degree or capacity of just rushing forward right now, while feminine energy is moving much more methodically. Feminine energy is moving with a lot more care and consideration. Feminine energy is taking these steps one step at a time right now to make sure that they can see the path ahead of them as they proceed forward. And feminine energy is perfectly fine doing this in a way that allows them to feel like they are in a point of isolation, even to the degree that they're doing this right now, because feminine energy is utilizing this as a point of correction as they continue to build forward right now in terms of laying their own feeling of stability going forward from this time. While for masculine energy right now, this is also potentially working right now to come into union or harmony right now to get these points of clarity towards feminine energy that you identify is in this mode or vibration. For the masculine energy that is in partnership at this time, this is a dual effort. Masculine and feminine energy that are in partnership right now are working in collaboration. They're harmonizing to a certain degree, because while we see the feminine energy is taking a lot of care and preparation right now in terms of the steps that they're taking, trying to get that clarity, trying to get that methodicalness, trying to get that insight, we see masculine is moving very swiftly right now. Masculine energy is almost in the exact different vibration. They're moving very quickly right now, doing the things that they need to do, almost haphazardly, just laying these plans in place. This is that beautiful harmony that we like to see in the divine union connections. And for both energies right now, This could be feeling like singular work that you're effectively doing around each other, maybe not necessarily in tandem, but you are both implementing these practices around one another, even if you're feeling like there is a point of isolation or solitude as you do so at this point. Well, for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is not in partnership, what we really identify is this is that moment where the feminine energy during this retrograde season right now is, again, they're working very much on building this sense of solitude, this ability to find security in a point of solitude. Feminine energy is putting a lot of focus right now on the spaces and places where they don't necessarily feel that they are at a point of stability and security where they would ideally desire. But what we appreciate about this is the feminine isn't effectively just staying there and falling into this feeling. Feminine energy is utilizing it as a point, as a catalyst to address those circumstances or those places or spaces that they don't necessarily feel that point of stability on, taking decisive action at this time, but with a lot of care, a lot of slowness. Feminine energy is doing all of this work very, very slowly right now. 6 planets in retrograde, my friends. 6 planets in retrograde. Well, for masculine energy right now, this is you effectively potentially seeing and recognizing this in the feminine energy that you are either, again, working to come back into harmony with, having active communication, recognizing that this energy was only going to be open and available to you if you are able to shed the light, to provide the insight, to provide the clarity that that energy required in order to feel comfortable, safe, and stable going forward. We're recognizing here for the masculine energy that you see the fact that the feminine energy is still at that point. For the masculine energy that knew that they had to come forward in this way, we see the fact that you recognize that the feminine energy is still at a point where they're feeling a little unstable or ungrounded in terms of some of the information that you have effectively been providing them. But what we also see here and recognize is the fact that you can also see the fact that the feminine energy is paying a lot of care and consideration to this. They are actively communicating. They are taking their time with what is being given to them. They are not necessarily in a space or place where they're just going to rush haphazardly into communication or into collaboration with you. This is that moment that you are, again, this is going to feel a little bit frustrating for the masculine energy right now, because we see here that to a certain extent, the masculine energy very much wants to rush forward as quickly as possible right now. And they're working right now in harmony with a feminine energy that is effectively like, not necessarily moving with the same expediency, right? But the feminine, but also recognizing the masculine energy, effectively being able to recognize to a certain extent that the reason the feminine energy doesn't rush forward like this is because the feminine energy is showing a little bit of is like showing the fact that they're working from a space of like putting a lot of care and consideration in terms of how they go forward. Masculine energy that's working like this is, again, if you're doing this to provide this insight, these difficult information that you're providing the feminine, you're giving them the time and the space they need to absorb and to continue to proceed forward, right? You're working very hard right now to provide anything you need to help them feel more secure as you go forward from this point. But you're also recognizing that there is some kind of energy here that requires you to take some point of isolation as this happens. But we see here that you're also feeling that like frustration in terms of like slowing down but needing to rush forward. While for the other part of the masculine collective right now that is not in partnership, this is a moment that is potentially, again, not necessarily even a singular manifestation of feminine right now, but leaving yourself open to multiple manifestations of feminine. Having a lot of active communication at this time, but recognizing that the feminine energy around you isn't necessarily being as they're being forthright, but the thing that they're being forthright about is the fact that they don't necessarily feel like they feel some lack of confidence. They feel so lack of confidence around the connection. They're even potentially in a space right now where it may be difficult to communicate with the feminine energy because you're recognizing the fact that the feminine energy is moving from a state or place of deep caution. You are doing everything you can right now to help that feminine energy recognize and feel that sense of comfort right now, and even working right now to address any circumstances or situations to help them show that you are in effect away coming through at a place where you are being open, where you're being honest, where you're willing to give and provide information at this time. This is that moment that we see that the masculine energy moving forward from this point is trying to utilize the lessons from the past in order to prevent any missteps with feminine energy going forward. But you're almost recognizing as you leave the past situations that you're finding a lot of the present situations have also learned a lot of the lessons from the past, and you're trying to actively show that you are also at a point of healing and growth as you proceed forward from this point. May I please have one card to clarify? Thank you for the gift. Clarification coming through right now with that 8 of Cups in its reversal. This is that moment, and we see here there's this point of stuckness. There's this feeling right now of, again, we've been seeing for masculine and feminine energy right now, that there is this care and capacity of wanting to go forward, having to take a bit of a leap of faith right now. Feminine energy, I gotta stress, is very, very resistant to taking leaps of faith right now that are towards outside energy. Feminine energy, what we're really seeing is feminine energy is fully capable of taking a leap of faith for themselves as long as it relates to themselves at this time. The difficulty is arising with feminine energy allowing in outside energy at this moment, because feminine energy is feeling a lot of caution and anxiety about making the wrong choice, going in the wrong direction. These are those feelings of instability that are effectively rising up in the feminine right now. A lot of this retrograde energy is causing the feminine and masculine to have to look at a lot of situations and circumstances from the past that they had to utilize as learning experiences. Feminine right now is almost articulating to the masculine energy that wants to move forward with this speed, with this rapidity, like with this rapidness, that they themselves have these points of hesitation because they're operating from a state of caution. Why is feminine operating from a state of caution right now? Because feminine is identifying spaces or places where they don't necessarily feel as stable as they would ideally desire. Feminine energy is articulating that. We see that here with our Queen of Wands. That is effectively what the feminine energy is communicating, and they're identifying and articulating any of the blockages that are still effectively standing in the way of them being able to move in a certain make a certain choice or move in a certain direction right now, particularly as it relates to their connection with masculine energy. Now, feminine and masculine energy right now that are working in partnership are doing this work in a collaborative way. You are both working right now to overcome and to identify hurdles so that you can move forward from the best way possible. But we are identifying the fact that there is some feeling of frustration or stuckness because you're seeing the fact that there are some present blockages at play. Masculine energy that's working right now with feminine is doing everything they can to shed light, to provide clarity, to provide insight towards a feminine energy that they are actively in communication with around these blockages, if you will. Recognizing that, as we have been seeing in the last few days, that the path forward needs to be one that has light shed upon it. So masculine and feminine energy are both working right now to help clear out these blockages for one another, even while they are identifying to each other where these blockages exist. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is not in partnership, this is feeling a little bit different because we are identifying that for the masculine energy right now, we are seeing that there is articulate feminine energy around you right now. There's feminine energy that you see has this ability to communicate and articulate their needs, their desires. For the masculine energy that was working to get back into union with some feminine energy that needed this information, they needed this clarity and insight. This is you effectively shedding light on these circumstances and situations. But it may be feeling somewhat frustrating because you're not necessarily seeing as fast a movement as you would like around these areas, because feminine energy is effectively not moving in any direction right now until they feel they have the full breadth of understanding as to why you're trying to come back into connection with them, right? This is what we see with that past energy that you had to effectively create this space or place of lending this truth or clarity to at this time. While for the masculine, other part of the masculine energy at this moment, if that was that lesson, if that was that point that you were effectively moving away from at this time, this is you coming potentially into new communication avenues with feminine energy. But you are also potentially recognizing those points of resistance around that feminine energy in coming into union, in coming into physical connection. And you potentially are trying to shed as much light as possible around these areas so that you can have more the masculine's own confidence about making these plans, having these determination points will also be shared with the feminine. But the masculine is realizing that the only way to do so right now is to provide that point of clarity. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hermit card and the Star energy in its reversal. So for masculine and feminine energy, this will feel a bit different. For masculine and feminine energy, we do see that today is a day of going inwards. A lot of internal work that is happening. Even for the partnership energy, I need to stress right now, some of the work that you're doing in partnership could be feeling like you're doing a lot of this work in solitude. Why? Because feminine energy is in a place right now of a lot of communication and planning, while masculine right now is potentially in a point of a lot of active action, right? For both the masculine and feminine energy right now, this is doing that dual work at this time. But again, there is this point of orientation in terms of recognizing spaces or places where feminine energy doesn't necessarily feel like they can be their most authentic, open, vulnerable self at this time. Masculine is potentially working right now to lend that point of clarity, to get to a deeper point of understanding on what these blockages are at this time so that they can remedy them. While for the feminine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, we see that this is that moment that you are working through for yourself at this time. You are feeling a degree or capacity where you may not necessarily feel like you can be your most open, authentic version of yourself at this moment. But we see that this is resulting in a movement inwards, finding that comfort in solitude, identifying those spaces or places that don't make you feel potentially stable enough to be your most authentic expression of yourself, all for the sake of being able to do so more going forward from this time. But it is taking some practical work that needs to be addressed at this time in order for you to move into this space or place at this moment. While for the masculine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is, and feminine energy, I will also say that you are doing this in the midst of a masculine energy that is moving towards you very swiftly, that seems very confident on what they do, that is trying to lay these plans. But we see the feminine isn't necessarily even as open to them as possible at this point, because feminine energy is going into this space of like inner work, as you will, going into the space of working from a place of caution. And there could almost, I need to stress, there could almost be this moment right now, again, that is identifying that it is some kind of stop-start energy that is happening right now with masculine. That is the point of anxiety around feminine. It's not the fact that the masculine energy may be moving towards feminine very swiftly today. It's the fact that it doesn't feel like it is effectively consistent, is what we're seeing that the feminine is really identifying. Because what we're really seeing here is feminine energy not understanding why masculine energy is potentially coming towards them in a way that feels like it rushes forward and then it departs. It rushes forward and then it departs. Feminine energy is seeing this and recognizing this in the masculine right now, and they're articulating upon it. They're saying, that's weird. They're saying, that doesn't make much sense. Can you please explain that? Because, why? It makes the feminine energy not feel stable. It makes the feminine energy not feel stable, right? This is feminine energy working to get that inner understanding for themselves at this time if they don't see it in the masculine energy. While for masculine energy right now, we see that again, there's a moment and opportunity that you understand that you're trying to shed some light for a feminine energy that is feeling less than open and authentic, or feeling like they can't be their most authentic, vulnerable expression of self around you. Why is the feminine energy doing that? Because you disappear. Because the masculine energy goes into these spaces or places where they effectively go inwards, right? Masculine energy needs to shed light on why masculine energy is embodying towards the feminine a space or place where they rush forward and then they disappear. they rush forward, and then they disappear. This is a part of what's creating that point of instability for the feminine right now, and that is not allowing the feminine to feel like they can be their most authentic expression of self, which is creating the blockage point, and feminine energy is being very articulate about that today. May I please get one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Cups in its upright. And what we love about this right now is this is that moment of consideration. This is that moment that we really see that is happening right now, that both for masculine and feminine energy at this moment, there is a point of consideration. But what we appreciate about this is the moment that we see that there is this point that feminine and masculine energy are looking at circumstances and situations from the past. You're utilizing patterns. You're looking at patterns. You're understanding situations or circumstances that yielded the same result, all to take new points of consideration or opportunity at this time. These are new perspectives. These are new points of view. This is why we appreciate the retrograde period so much, because the retrograde period is a slowdown point that allows us a new opportunity to consider things from different places, different spaces, new possibilities. Feminine and masculine energy right now are taking a lot of this time for themselves at this moment. They are going inwards. They're doing a lot of this internal work at this time. For feminine energy, this is that moment of understanding and recognizing places and spaces that don't allow you to feel like you can be your most authentic, open, vulnerable expression of yourself at this moment. But what we appreciate, because we're seeing here that is that moment where feminine does not feel like they can be their most open, authentic expression of themselves when they're not necessarily feeling this point of stability. Feminine energy is taking care of trying to build that point of stability for themselves, all on their own at this time. They're working on that. They're trying to find and identify it. The identification point has to do potentially with that sense of stability, but also in recognizing masculine energy that feels like it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. That inconsistency that creates a space or place where feminine doesn't necessarily feel as confident to be in combination with masculine. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy right now, that is working in partnership, that is working in union. This is masculine energy that is effectively shedding as much light as possible right now towards feminine energy to help them get that point of clarification. Feminine energy is effectively asking a lot of questions right now, and the masculine energy that is working in partnership with feminine is providing those answers. They are lending that clarity. They are also potentially working to get clarification from feminine energy at this time. And this is allowing for some of this new approach that we're seeing. This is allowing for a lot of these new possibilities to be considered. For feminine energy that is effectively receiving this right now, this exact moment for the masculine that is potentially coming back in towards them at this time is what is giving them the confidence to consider allowing this energy back in. It's that information, that clarity that is being shed at this time that is effectively opening it up towards the feminine at this moment. While for the masculine energy that is not in partnership right now, we keep seeing that this is one of two different avenues that is effectively happening right now. Either you are working to come back into partnership right now with the feminine energy that is holding you at a bit of a distance. Why is the feminine energy holding you at a bit of a distance? Because we see the fact that they recognize that you're coming in very quickly at this moment. That you've decided upon a course of action, you're moving very swiftly, and feminine energy is effectively pumping the brakes, if you will, to a certain extent, to try to get clarity as to your own sense of expediency. Because the expediency articulates almost a lack of consistency. And while the expediency may look like it is positive and productive, this is not necessarily a feminine that's just like opening themselves up and being vulnerable to any energy that's immediately coming back to them at this time. There's a lot of caution that is being played here. The masculine energy that's working in this capacity is doing everything they can to lend that insight, to lend that clarity to the feminine, so that the feminine energy will feel more confident and allow potentially this moment of allowing a new opportunity for masculine and feminine, because the masculine is effectively clarifying to the feminine that something has changed. Something has changed that has required or resulted in this new direction that the masculine is trying to move towards right now for feminine at this time. While for the other part of the masculine energy, this is all new energy that we're seeing that you're potentially experiencing at this moment. You are trying to come towards a feminine energy that has their guard up to a certain extent. They're putting a lot of walls up here. They're not necessarily being as open and vulnerable as you may typically be recognized or used to at this time. But utilizing the lessons from the past, you're also understanding potentially why. You are understanding that some of your own experiences from the past, some of your own insights on experiences with feminine is probably why the feminine energy is in this way. And you are utilizing this to shed as much clarity and provide as much information to the feminine as possible, so that the feminine energy will feel more confident going forward. And this is that new approach, even towards new feminine energy at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Wands in combination with our Knight of Swords energy. So what we're really seeing right now is this moment or this opportunity that we are identifying, that masculine energy is working right now to lay a lot of plans. They're putting these plans in place. They're moving with a lot of rapidness at this moment. Also, we are identifying the fact, though, that there is this feeling or anxiety right now. We're seeing that for the masculine, one of the reasons that you're moving so swiftly right now is because you're feeling some anxiety about reciprocity. There's either some spaces or places that you're now feeling like you should have been contributing more to, and now you're trying to make up for it. Or you're experiencing that there's something here where someone is feeling that point of resistance. And this is you trying to amend for that point of resistance by putting your own energy in to show that this is a point of confidence for you as you go forward from this point. While for the feminine energy right now, this is that same moment where, again, feminine energy, it's not the question about what's coming towards you right now. It's not the question about the plans that are being put in place, but it's your own point of resistance about the intentionality around those plans at this time that is holding you back to a certain capacity. You're not just kind of opening yourself up to things right now. You're being a little bit resistant and cautious because you're moving from a space where you're feeling less than stable at this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Knight of Wands. Communication is key right now. And what we're really identifying at this moment for both masculine and feminine energy is there is this point right now of trying to build towards these better opportunities for themselves at this time. Feminine energy right now is putting a lot of care and concentration in terms of what is being communicated and what is being provided at this time. They are holding back to a certain extent a lot of this retrograde energy at this moment, but they are leaving themselves open to the consideration and the opportunities that are coming towards them at this time to really identify if they're coming through in the way that they would ideally desire. And feminine is utilizing this right now with trying to see what that path ahead will look like. Feminine energy is working right now to see these plans put in place before they're fully committing themselves to anything at this moment. For the masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in union, this is that moment that will occur after we work through this point of blockage. This is that moment that we see that for the masculine and feminine energy at this time, this is that moment that we are identifying that you are working right now to determine those spaces and places that you feel that you are ready to invest in or have that point of reciprocity in. Feminine energy right now is utilizing this moment, leaning on masculine energy if you are in partnership right now, to get a lot of this insight, to get a lot of this understanding so that you can feel more confident going forward from this point. While for masculine energy right now, this is you taking a lot of action right now, moving with a lot of directionality right now towards those spaces and places so that you can see whether they are going to be spaces and places that give back in kind. And you're doing that also by laying a lot of these plans moving forward. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that are not in partnership at this time, this is going to feel like more of a challenge, because we see here that masculine energy, you are now in this retrograde period right now where you are trying to take a lot of action. You're utilizing a lot of movement. You're having a lot of communication at this time. You are potentially doing this right now all for the sake of trying to lay out these plans, lay out these possibilities at this moment. You are recognizing right now that there's something here where you need to put tangible opportunities. You need to create these plans to go forward with at this time. But you are seeing some point of resistance right now around the feminine energy in terms of their own ability to commit to this degree, to commit to this capacity. This is that Queen of Pentacles in its reversal that we are seeing here, as well as this Three of Pentacles here. The feminine energy is not necessarily in a space where they're being as reciprocal at this time, because they're concentrating so much on their own sense of stability at this moment. However, what we appreciate right now with masculine energy is there is active communication happening. For the masculine energy right now, this is active communication right now that you are either having with those past circumstances or situations. You are lending that insight. You are lending those points of clarity to help build that point of confidence, to allow for a better possibility going forward, while also recognizing why there is this point of resistance around the feminine right now and taking steps to address it. For the other part of the masculine collective right now, this is you encountering new feminine energy. And that new feminine energy is one that you understand is potentially a little reluctant, a little resistant, because of their own feelings of a lack of stability in terms of what you're creating at this time. But you are lending a lot of active communication and planning right now so that that feminine energy will feel more open in terms of giving back to you as much as you are giving back towards them at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Six of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Eight of Cups in its reversal. So for masculine and feminine energy right now, there is this moment of having to identify spaces or places that are creating blockages at this moment. Those spaces and places that are creating blockages at this moment have everything to do with reciprocity. What is being given and what is being returned in kind. And all of this is working right now to build against this blockage. Feminine right now is utilizing communication. Feminine is utilizing their own powers of communication at this time to overcome these hurdles and blockages. Masculine is also utilizing communication, but they're also utilizing a lot of active action. Masculine's putting a lot of action in right now to help address anything that is being communicated by the feminine that needs to be addressed. Clarification between these 2 points right now coming through with Sun in its reversal. These have to do with some of the doubts, some of the fears, some of the anxieties coming to the surface right now. This is that moment that is requiring an addressing point. And this is that point that we're seeing here, that both for masculine and feminine energy, there are some doubts and fears that are coming into play. Feminine energy is articulating upon these right now. They're putting a lot of care and consideration into their own doubts and fears and articulating upon them. We're also seeing here that this is that resistance point that we're identifying in the feminine right now, in terms of those spaces or places that they're trying potentially actively in communication with masculine on at this moment. Feminine energy is feeling or seeing to a certain extent masculine energy that is wanting to move towards them at this time. But feminine energy, even the energy that is not in union, is holding back to a certain extent, because feminine energy is operating from a space where they're very much concentrated on trying to maintain their own point of stability at this time. Feminine isn't feeling particularly stable today at this moment because they're putting so much care and consideration into the spaces and places in their life that need to be addressed. Feminine is looking at those spaces or places that don't feel effectively reciprocal, or they're not giving back in kind, and they're identifying them or seeing them as somewhat being blockage points. That is that point of doubt that feminine is utilizing at this time. So especially if there's masculine energy here that is kind of rushed forward in a space or a time period that has been like a long distance between, this is that moment that feminine energy is going to communicate that lack of consistency. That is the doubt, that is the fear, that there's a worry or fear here of letting that energy back in because this may recur again, or that it may create a blockage point. This is why the masculine energy right now is working right now to communicate to the feminine energy that they're able to come forward in a consistent way. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is working in partnership, this is a mutual identification that you're putting towards any of the blockages, your own anxieties and doubts and fears, all so that you can get more insight and clarity going forward. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, there's a lot of communication that is potentially happening right now around these blockages. For the masculine energy that is going back to old energy, shedding that information, providing that insight during this retrograde period, we see that this is where the conversation is focused. It's going to be around places and spaces, around the doubts, anxieties, and fears on someone's ability to reciprocate in a clear, consistent way, and the feeling of that being the hurdle itself. For masculine and feminine energy, though masculine is taking a lot more active action to try to prove against that by laying out these plans, by laying out these possibilities going forward at this time. While for the masculine energy that is utilizing this as a lesson taken forward from this point, you are effectively also articulating upon these doubts, these fears, these experiences. There could even be right now a lot of conversation happening around mutual circumstances or situations where these things have occurred, all for the sake of understanding whether you have learned the same lessons that would help identify why the feminine is moving from a place of such caution and why the masculine is feeling such confidence. It's all coming through that point of clarification. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 8 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our 4 of Cups. So this is that moment of feeling some hurdle, some blockage, trying to overcome that blockage right now. We see that today is that day of putting a lot of assessment into one's possibilities right now and potentially taking new approaches or taking new points of consideration as you proceed forward from this point for both masculine and feminine energy right now. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Cups. And we love to see this because what this is really identifying right now is the fact that the masculine energy is still at a point of emotional balance. We have gotten this King of Cups energy right now, my friends, 3 times over the last 3 days. We love this because what this really speaks towards the masculine journey right now is that you're doing a lot of positive work in integrating your own feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. Masculine energy is effectively succeeding in maintaining a point of emotional balance at this time, even as it relates to overcoming hurdles and blockages, looking at hurdles and blockages, recognizing them, experiencing them, not necessarily allowing those blockages not to shake your own emotional balance at this point, but taking this as an opportunity to consider new options and new approaches while also keeping that degree of emotional balance going forward from this point. While for feminine energy, this is feminine energy remaining on that point of consistency as it relates to what they are looking for at this time towards the masculine energy. This is either feminine energy that's working in partnership right now with a emotionally balanced masculine energy to help identify any hurdles and blockages and to come up with mutual different approaches in terms of how to tackle them at this time. While for the other part, for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, for feminine energy not in partnership, this is that moment that you are doing this work for yourself at this time, recognizing blockages, taking new approaches, and as we keep saying, what is the new approach that feminine is taking? Feminine is taking this approach that they're only allowing emotionally balanced masculine energy to approach them at this time. And that's why feminine energy is being patient right now, because they realize that a masculine energy that can be patient is a masculine energy that is emotionally balanced. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Wands in combination with our Sun card. So masculine energy right now, communication is key. We see that we love seeing this because this is the overcoming of some of those communication hurdles that we saw just a few days ago. Masculine energy is effectively communicating right now, though there are some points of communication that masculine is paying attention to. This is either addressing their own anxieties, their own doubts, their own fears at this moment, or simultaneously right now, this is masculine energy that is effectively working right now to address any circumstances or situations with feminine, to try to shed light, to try to bring into a point of positivity. There's something here that this is the masculine energy coming to kind of provide this point of clarity, to lend confidence to situations or scenarios that either they are feeling less than confident on at this moment, or they are articulating their own doubts or own fears at this time as well. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is that work where feminine energy is feeling some feelings of loss or doubt or fear at this time, but they're getting a lot of this clarification from masculine energy even as they're experiencing this. Masculine energy, this is that joint work that we're seeing you do, allowing your own ability of communication to help overcome any of these hurdles in partnership at this moment. While for masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is feminine energy having that communication come through for masculine, but really weighing where that information leaves you at this time. As we indicated, we saw that the fact that for the energy that's not in partnership, it's not the fact that the communication's coming through. It's the desire for the communication, but the recognition that the reason that the masculine energy was resistant in communicating it was because it was less than positive information. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Swords. So this is some of that conflict energy that we see needs to effectively be addressed to some extent. What we're really identifying at this time right now is masculine and feminine energy are going through this point of conflict. We've been seeing this in the cards over the last few days. For feminine energy right now, that point of conflict has to do with some of the communication that you're effectively receiving from masculine at this time. There is something that's coming through right now around the feminine working on creating a better sense of stability. Feminine energy is potentially even communicating their own doubts, their own fears, their own anxieties at this point towards masculine energy that is communicative towards them at this moment. But what we really see right now is this is that moment that is helping the feminine energy recognize if the masculine energy is at a point of balance. Because while feminine energy is experiencing an internal point of conflict, they're really trying to see if the masculine energy is going to turn that into a tangible one. Or if the tangible masculine energy is instead coming in with solutions, with possibilities, with ideas to help the feminine energy through their own internal sense of conflict at this moment. While for the masculine energy at this time, this is again, you effectively going through some circumstances or situations that feel like they are a bit of a challenge right now. We see that there are some challenges that are presented right now to the masculine energy at this time. But what we really appreciate right now for masculine energy is you aren't necessarily letting this block or stop you right now in your own ability to communicate. You are proceeding forward in that communication through any sense of internal or external conflict. But it's that point that you're almost identifying the places that are becoming too conflict laden. This is that moment that you may be moving away from anything that is creating too much of a point of conflict, or articulating your own doubts and fears around the conflict that you are experiencing at this time. Masculine and feminine energy right now, this is going to feel like some of this struggle point that we're seeing right now in this Venus in retrograde period. Because as we see right now, this is either masculine coming towards feminine right now with new communication, but not necessarily experiencing open, vulnerable feminine energy Instead, feeling like the feminine energy is holding them back off or holding them back at a distance because of their own anxieties and fears. Masculine's working to overcome those, to bring some light to situations where the feminine is also feeling very triggered at this time. While for feminine right now, this is you feeling that internal conflict and that own sense to a certain extent of unsettledness or unhappiness as it relates to the way the masculine energy that is unattached is coming towards you at this moment, looking for the solution with the clarity and the consistency that you would ideally desire at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Sun card in its reversal in combination with our King of Cups. So, masculine energy moving from a state of emotional balance, holding this state of emotional balance. And what we appreciate for masculine energy right now is you're doing it even in the face of circumstances or situations that feel like they're creating some setbacks for you at this time. While for feminine energy right now, if you are in partnership, you are feeling this moment of unhappiness, or you're working through some feelings of uncertainty with the support of the emotionally balanced masculine energy. For the energy that is not in partnership right now, this is masculine energy employing an emotionally balanced approach to situations or circumstances that need some level of positivity added to them. While for feminine right now, this is feminine feeling some doubts and fears coming through as they continue to work to manifest this energy towards them at this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Pentacles in its reversal. We love this because what we're really identifying right now is while there is a point of conflict that is occurring right now, we are also identifying the fact that this is the healing of the abandonment wound. The abandonment wound is not going to get healed on its own. The abandonment wound is going to get healed in the moment that you are feeling points of conflict. So while there is a conflict experience right now, there are different approaches that are being taken to it, and that is the valuable thing, because what we're really identifying is it is helping you come to a better understanding of what that deeper rooted wound is that needs to be addressed. This is all that beautiful deeper work that we want to see in our retrograde period. Final card for today's spread is, we have here our Magician in its reversal. And this is the heart of it. This is that moment that we're seeing that both for masculine and feminine energy, what could be feeling like such a challenge right now is doubts and fears in your own ability, in your own capacity to manifest, in your own way of doing things or being able to do things the way that you desire. For feminine right now, a lot of those doubts and fears have to do with allowing a lot of masculine energy in at this time. Feminine energy is experiencing points from the past where they may have allowed masculine energy in that effectively took their own ability or degree to be able to do this for themselves away from themselves at this time. While for the masculine energy right now, we are seeing that in a way you are feeling very frustrated because some of the guardrails that the feminine has at this time may be making you feel like it is very hard to be able to work in harmony with that energy. For the masculine and feminine energy right now that is working in partnership, this is a dual effort. This is doing a lot of work to heal these abandonment wounds so that you can operate better going forward. But there may be some trigger points that are hit today, particularly as it relates to conflict in terms of these abandonment wounds rising to the surface. While for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is not in partnership, this is the playing out of the retrograde intangible effort, because feminine is communicating their doubts and fears towards masculine. Masculine is trying to amend for those fears, but even as they amend for them, they can recognize that the feminine is still putting their guardrails up to a certain extent. So it is creating this sense of frustration for both energies today as you proceed forward. Bottom of the deck on today's reading right now is Two of Pentacles in its reversal. There is some feeling of overwhelm right now for both masculine and feminine energy. There is this moment of trying to come into a point of integration, and it could be feeling like there is something that feels a little overwhelming today. But we also see that this is an opportunity to try to find places and spaces that can make things easier at this time, allowing yourself to make a choice to help navigate things that are going to allow for a point of easement. This is even a point right now with these new foundations that are being laid that is really asking for you to understand or value what you feel is important for you at this time, that you feel like you really need as you go forward from this point. Don't allow this feeling of overwhelm to overtake you. Remember, it shouldn't feel like a juggling act. It should feel like a dance. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video with the option of a recording sent to you afterwards. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a reading on my website, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Also, most importantly, please, please, please keep in mind that I will never, ever PM you for a reading. I will never inbox you. I will never slide into your DMs and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for sharing this reading with me today, and we will do this again tomorrow.